The last thing she remembered before everything went wrong was the sound of the front door. Not a slam. That would have been almost respectful. At least a slam means you felt something on the way out. No. Tyler Reed closed the door quietly, the way you close a door when you want to pretend you were never there. She found out later that he had not called an ambulance. A neighbor had, Mrs. Patterson from 4B, who had heard the noise and waited exactly 4 minutes before deciding that no, this was not something she could ignore. She woke up in a hospital bed to a nurse with kind eyes and careful hands, and news delivered in the gentle way that people deliver things they wish they didn't have to. The baby was gone. Tyler was not there. Tyler was not anywhere. If you're feeling this already, stick around, like, subscribe, and let's keep going because we are just getting started. But to understand how she got there, alone in that hospital bed with nothing but a quiet door click and a neighbor's conscience to show for 8 years, you have to go back to the beginning. Vero had a type, not the tall, dark, and handsome type, not the successful, God-fearing, emotionally available type that her mother kept praying about every Sunday morning with her hands raised to the ceiling. No, Vero had the Tyler Reed type, the kind of man who could look you dead in the eyes after breaking your nose and say, "I didn't meant to did that to you, babe. You just makes me so angry sometime." And somehow, you'd find yourself handing him a tissue for his tears. And she was in love with Tyler Reed. Tyler Reed, who once sent her a voice note saying, "You is the most beautifulest woman I ever seen in my entire life of living." Tyler Reed, who had a gift, not for love, not for loyalty, for grammar, specifically destroying it. Her best friend Sandra said it plainly the first time she heard him speak. "Vero, baby, is he okay?" She had a first-class degree from Oxford, ran her own consulting firm at 31, had been featured in Forbes Africa, wore Valentino on Tuesdays for no reason, and every night she went home to a man who couldn't construct a correct sentence or a healthy relationship to save his life. 2 years later, her best friend Sandra had upgraded her diagnosis to one word: witchcraft. Vero had met Tyler Reed at 24. He was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that made your common sense take a long vacation and forget to leave a forwarding address. She had been at a rooftop party in Manhattan, holding a glass of Pinot Noir she wasn't really drinking, when he walked up to her and said with complete confidence, "You is literally the most gorgeous woman that has ever been at this party or any party I ever went to before." Any sensible woman would have smiled politely and walked away. Vero put down her wine glass, looked at him for a long moment and thought, "He's probably just nervous." That was her first mistake. Her second mistake was giving him her number. Her third was in answering when he called. Her fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh mistakes followed naturally after that, the way disasters tend to, one after the other, picking up speed until you're at the bottom of a hill wondering how you got there. By 26, they were living together. By 28, she had quietly paid off 3 of his credit cards, helped him find 2 jobs he subsequently lost, and talked herself out of leaving him on 14 separate occasions. She kept count. She didn't know why she kept count. She just did. Sandra kept count too, but Sandra's list was different. Sandra's list was titled, "Things Tyler Reed Has Done That Would Have Had a Normal Woman Running." It had 31 bullet points and she updated it regularly. "You know what your problem is?" Sandra said one Saturday morning, sitting across from Vero at their favorite brunch spot, watching her best friend stare into her mimosa like it contained the secrets of the universe. "You are too smart to be this dumb. That's your whole problem right there." Sandra: "No, let me finish. You, Oxford, first class, Forbes, Valentino on a Tuesday for no reason." Sandra counted on her fingers. "And then you go home to a man who just this week texted you, and I quote..." She pulled out her phone dramatically because Sandra had screenshot everything, always. "Babe, I thinked about what you said and I think you was wrong, but I forgive you anyways." "Vero, I thinked. Vero winced. He was trying to what? Murder the English language? Because he succeeded. He succeeded with honors, Vero. Oxford should revoke your degree just by association." "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" Sandra leaned forward. Last month he hit you. The month before that he went through your phone and deleted your male contacts. The month before that, he told you that your success was emasculating him and you actually apologized. You apologized to him for being successful. Vero said nothing. I'm asking you as your best friend who loves you more than she loves herself. Sandra said quietly, the humor dropping from her voice for just a moment. Why are you still with him? And please, please do not say love. Give me something logical. Is it sex? Because Vero, I promise you, whatever he's doing, someone else can do it better, and they will use correct grammar while doing it. Vero choked on her mimosa. Sandra! I'm serious. Sandra threw her hands up. I see no logical reason why an intelligent woman would do this to herself and call it love. None. Zero. If it's the grammar that's confusing you, that's acquirable elsewhere too. Vero was laughing now despite herself, pressing her napkin to her mouth. You are absolutely insane. And you are absolutely in love with a man who thinks "thinked" is a word. Sandra picked up her fork. I'm the sane one in this conversation. Vero didn't leave Tyler that Saturday. She didn't leave him the Saturday after that either. What she did, 3 weeks later, was make the mistake of telling Tyler what Sandra had said. It was one of those evenings where Tyler was being good. Not genuinely good. Vero had long since learned the difference, but strategically good. He needed something. She could always tell because on those days he cooked, which he did badly, and called her baby more than usual, and looked at her with soft eyes that had taken her years to recognize as performance. That particular evening, he wanted her to co-sign a business loan, $50,000, for a business plan he had written on a napkin. He made pasta. He poured wine. He sat across from her and said, Babe, you is literally the only person in this world that I trusts completely, and something about the way he said it, the familiar wrongness of it, the casual destruction of basic subject-verb agreement, made something loosen in Vero's chest. She told him what Sandra had said, not to hurt him, not strategically, just because it was sitting there and the wine was warm and she was tired of carrying things alone. Tyler's face changed, not dramatically. That was the thing about Tyler. He never did anything dramatically enough that you could point to it clearly. It was always subtle, a shift in the jaw, a stillness in the eyes. Sandra said that? He said. She was just, your best friend told you to leave me and you're only telling me now? Tyler, she was just being, I need to talk to her. Vero should have said no. She knew, even as he said it, that she should have said no. She did not say no. Tyler called Sandra the next morning. Vero didn't know exactly what was said. Sandra told her later very calmly that Tyler had explained. To her, and this was a direct quote, you needs to minds your business and stays out of what you doesn't understand. Sandra had listened to the entire thing in silence. Then she had said, Tyler, honey, the verb is stay, S-T-A-Y. Stay out of what you don't understand? You're welcome. And hung up. Vero found out about the call when Sandra texted her. Not an angry text, just 4 words. He called me, Vero. And then Vero made the worst mistake of the entire relationship. She got angry at Sandra, not at Tyler, who had made the call, not at herself, who had told him, at Sandra, who had done nothing but love her loudly and consistently for 12 years. She called Sandra, and she said things she would spend a long time trying to take back. She said Sandra was jealous. She said Sandra had never supported her relationship. She called Sandra a pick-me. Sandra, who had a good man at home and had spent years trying to drag her best friend away from one who absolutely was not. Sandra, who had never in her life rearranged herself for anyone. The irony was so thick you could choke on it. Vero, who had co-signed 3 of Tyler Reed's credit cards and apologized to him for being successful, was the same person who called Sandra a pick-me. She told Sandra that she and her opinions could, collectively, go to a place that was warm and unpleasant. She may also have mentioned Sandra's boyfriend in a way that was unnecessary. Sandra listened to all of it. Then Sandra said, very quietly, Okay, Vero. And that was that. They didn't speak for 4 months. 4 months during which Vero told herself she didn't miss Sandra. 4 months during which she threw herself into work, and Tyler continued to be Tyler. Hot and cold, loving and cruel, present and absent, always just good enough after being just bad enough that leaving felt impossible. 4 months during which she got pregnant and didn't tell anyone because she didn't know how to feel about it herself. She was 10 weeks along when Tyler came home in one of his moods. She never knew what triggered them. That was the design of it. The unpredictability that kept her always slightly off balance, always trying to read the room, always adjusting herself to manage something that was fundamentally unmanageable. That evening, she said the wrong thing. She still wasn't entirely sure what it was. Something about dinner, something small, something that in any other home between any other two people would have dissolved into nothing. It didn't dissolve into nothing. She woke up in a hospital. The nurse had kind eyes and a careful voice and told her what had happened in the gentle way that people deliver news they wish they didn't have to deliver. The baby was gone. Tyler was not there. Tyler had not come with her in the ambulance. Tyler had not called the hospital. Tyler had, as far as anyone could tell, simply left. Vero lay in that hospital bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling, and felt something inside her go very, very quiet. Not broken, not even sad exactly, just quiet, like a room after everyone has left. She called Sandra. She didn't say anything at first, just held the phone. Sandra, to her eternal credit, didn't say anything either for a full 30 seconds. Then she said, "What hospital?" "You don't have to." "Vero, what hospital?" She was there within the hour. She didn't say "I told you so." She didn't reference any of their last conversation. She sat in the chair beside the bed, held Vero's hand, and was simply there, in the complete, uncomplicated way that only a person who genuinely loves you can be. When Vero was discharged 3 days later, she looked at the address the nurse asked her to confirm for discharge paperwork, her home address, the apartment she shared with Tyler, and something in her stomach turned. "I can't go there," she said. "I know," Sandra said. "Come home with me." She did. Tyler called 68 times in the first week. Vero knew the exact number because Sandra kept a tally on a sticky note on the refrigerator, updated daily, with absolutely zero comment. Just the number, growing, like a very depressing advent calendar. On day 8, Tyler sent a voice note. Sandra played it on speaker without asking permission, which was rude and also necessary. "Babe," Tyler's voice filled the kitchen. "I know you is probably still upset with but I wants you to know that I've been doing a lots of thinking, and I realized that we belongs together, and what happened was a accident, and I needs you to come home because this apartment doesn't feels right without you. And also, the Wi-Fi password was in your phone and I don't remembers it." Sandra looked at Vero. Vero looked at Sandra. "The Wi-Fi password," Sandra said. "The Wi-Fi password," Vero confirmed. Something that had been wound very tight inside Vero for 8 years, slowly, quietly, began to unravel, not with drama, not with tears, just release. Like a breath she had been holding since she was 24 years old at a rooftop party in Manhattan. "I'm going to need you to go on this vacation with me," Sandra said, turning back to her coffee. "What vacation?" "My yearly Dubai trip. I leave in 3 weeks." Sandra sipped her coffee. "You're coming." "Sandra, I can't just—" "You almost just died. Tyler is calling about Wi-Fi passwords. Your consulting firm has a team that can handle 2 weeks without you." Sandra put her mug down. "Also," she added with the particular gleam in her eye that Vero both loved and deeply feared, "you might meet a Mafia boss." Vero stared at her. "A what?" "A Mafia boss. Dubai is full of them. International, mysterious, excellent grammar." "Sandra, that is not a selling point." "Pack light. We leave on the 15th. "Okay, wait. Are you Team Sandra or what? Because Sandra has been holding this whole story together and she deserves her flowers. Drop a comment, share this with a friend who has Sandra in their life, and if you're new here, subscribe. It's free, and I promise we're just getting to the good part." Dubai in March was the kind of beautiful that felt slightly illegal. The air was warm without being cruel, the skyline rose out of the desert like a dare, and everything, the hotels, the cars, the people, had a particular quality of excess that was either inspiring or exhausting depending on your current relationship with your own life choices. Vero stood on the balcony of their suite at the Atlantis the Royal on the first evening, looked out at the Arabian Gulf glittering below her, and felt, for the first time in longer than she could remember, like herself. Not Tyler's girlfriend, not the woman from the hospital, not the version of herself that had spent 8 years making herself smaller to fit into someone else's damage, just Vero, 31, Oxford, Forbes, Valentino on a Tuesday for no reason. "You look like you're having a moment," Sandra said from behind her, appearing with 2 glasses of something cold and expensive. "I might be." "Good." Sandra handed her a glass. "Have it. You've earned it." They clinked glasses. "I'm sorry," Vero said, "for what I said 4 months ago about you and about David." "David and I are fine." "I know, I'm still sorry." Sandra was quiet for a moment. "You were protecting something you loved, even if what you loved was hurting you." She shrugged. "I understood it, I just couldn't watch it." "I know. You would have come around eventually." "I know. I just didn't think it would take him leaving you in a hospital for Sandra." I'm done." She sipped her drink. "Mafia boss tomorrow." "There is no mafia boss." "We'll see." They saw, not the next day. The next day was beaches and overpriced smoothies, and Sandra taking approximately 400 photos for her Instagram, while Vero sat in the sun and felt the last 8 years slowly bake off her, like something that had never belonged there. It was the day after that. A rooftop dinner at a restaurant whose name Vero couldn't pronounce and whose menu had no prices, which was either a flex or a warning, and they had been seated for approximately 10 minutes when Sandra kicked her under the table. "Don't look," Sandra said immediately. "Look." "You just said don't look." "I changed my mind. Table by the window, 12 o'clock, but be subtle." Vero was not particularly subtle, but she managed to turn her head in a way that could generously be described as casual and, oh. The man at the table by the window was, there was no other word for it, devastating. Not beautiful in the soft way. Devastating in the way of things that are very powerful and very controlled and very aware of both. He was Korean, somewhere in his mid-30s, with sharp features and the particular stillness of a man who had never needed to fill a silence in his life. He wore a dark suit with no tie and the kind of watch that didn't need to announce itself. He was surrounded by 4 men who were clearly not there for dinner, and he was looking directly at Vero, not the way men usually looked at her, not the appreciative, assessing look she was accustomed to and had long since learned to navigate. He was looking at her the way you look at something you have already decided about. Vero looked away first. "That man," Sandra said in a voice of profound satisfaction, "has mafia boss energy." "Sandra, please." "I'm just saying what we're both seeing." "We are not both seeing." He hasn't looked away. Vero did not look back. She was very mature and composed, and she absolutely did not look back for at least 4 minutes, which was impressive given the circumstances. When she did look back, he was still looking, and then he did something unexpected. He nodded, not a greeting exactly, more an acknowledgement. The kind of nod that said, "I see you, I'm not done seeing you, I'm being patient about it." Vero turned back to her menu. "I need another drink," she said. "I'll get us 2, Sandra said cheerfully. His name, it turned out, was Kim Tae-yang. She learned this not because she did not ask, but because he sent a bottle of wine to their table with a card that said simply, "Kim Tae-yang, it's a pleasure to share the same room as you. I hope the evening is treating you well." Perfect English, perfect grammar, every word exactly where it was supposed to be. Sandra read the card, read it again, and looked up with an expression of religious wonder. "He used a semicolon correctly," she whispered. "Vero, he used a semicolon." "That doesn't mean anything." "After Tyler Reed, a correct semicolon means everything." Vero laughed despite herself. Pressing her hand to her mouth, she looked at the bottle. It was a very good vintage, which she knew because she actually knew about wine, unlike some people. And then she looked across the restaurant. He was watching her laugh, Something about being watched while laughing felt different from being watched while being composed. More exposed. More real. She raised her glass in a small acknowledgement. He smiled. It was a slow smile, unhurried, the smile of a man who had nowhere to be except exactly where he was. Sandra made a sound beside her that was not appropriate for a restaurant of this caliber. Sandra. Sorry, I'm fine, I'm completely fine. He came to their table before they left. Alone, the four men who were definitely not there for dinner remained at his table with the particular discipline of people who are very good at their jobs. He stopped at a respectful distance and looked at Vero with those calm, decided eyes and said, "I don't normally do this." "Do what?" Vero asked. "Interrupt a woman's evening." He said it simply without performance. "But I think I would regret not introducing myself." He extended his hand. "Kim Tae-yang." She shook it. "Vero." "Just Vero?" "For now." Something moved behind his eyes that was not quite a smile but was adjacent to one. "Then I'll earn the rest." He did not ask for her number. He did not invite himself to sit down. He said it was a pleasure to meet her, wished them both a good evening, and left. Sandra waited approximately 3 seconds. "I want to cry," she announced. "That was the most respectful thing I've ever witnessed in person." He said he would earn the rest, Vero. "Earn. Tyler Reed once told you that you should be grateful he chose you." "I remember." "Kim Tae-young said he would earn your last name." "He didn't say that exactly. He said it with energy, and that's enough for me." He found her the next morning, not in a way that was alarming. Later she would learn that very little about Kim Tae-yang was accidental, and that finding her had required approximately one question asked of the right person. But she was at the pool, alone, Sandra having gone for a spa treatment, when his shadow fell across her sun lounger and she looked up. He was in casual clothes, still devastating. Unfairly so, really, given that it was 10 in the morning and she was in a swimsuit and had not prepared for this. "I brought coffee," he said, holding 2 cups. "I wasn't sure how you take it, so I asked them to bring the additions separately." There was a small tray, milk, sugar, oat milk, for reasons she couldn't explain. "Honey." "How did you know I might want oat milk?" "I didn't. I wanted to cover the options." He said it like it was nothing. Like covering a woman's coffee options at 10 in the morning was simply a thing a person did. She moved her bag from the lounger beside her. He sat down. He handed her a cup. He did not immediately speak, which she was not accustomed to in men who were interested in her. Most of them arrived with an agenda and a performance. He just sat in the sun beside her, as if he had all the time in the world, and had chosen to spend some of it here. It was, she realized, extraordinarily comfortable. They talked for 2 hours, not about anything consequential at first. The city, the food, a restaurant he recommended on the Palm that she should not miss. He asked about her work and listened, actually listened in the way that made it clear he was filing things away, that what she said mattered to him as information. He told her, simply and without drama, that he ran several businesses across Seoul, Tokyo, and Dubai. He did not specify the nature of all of them. She did not ask. There was something in the careful architecture of what he said, and didn't say that she understood, without needing it explained. "You're not scared of me," he observed at one point, not a question. "Should I be?" He considered this. "Most people are." "I've been scared of the wrong things for too long," she said. "I think I'm recalibrating." He looked at her for a moment with those quiet, decided eyes. "Good," he said, and then, "I'd like to take you to dinner. Tonight, if you'll let me." "You're asking." "I'll always ask." She said yes. Sandra, when informed, sat down on the edge of the hotel bed with the expression of a woman watching her favorite show release the best episode of the season. "He brought coffee with oat milk as an option," Vero said. "Stop." He said he would always ask. "Vero, I need you to breathe." "I am breathing." "No, you're glowing. That's different from breathing." Sandra grabbed her hands. "Give him a chance, please. I am asking you as someone who has watched you shrink for 8 years. Give this man a chance." "It's just dinner." "It's never just dinner with a man who brings oat milk as an option." Vero laughed, and then stopped laughing because her phone was ringing and the name on the screen was Tyler Reed. She and Sandra looked at the phone in identical silence. "Don't," Sandra said. Vero answered. She didn't know why. Muscle memory, 8 years of answering. "Babe." Tyler's voice, warm and familiar in the way that things you've loved for a long time are warm and familiar, even when they've lost the right to be. "I knows you is still upset with I, but I've been doing so much thinking and I wants you to know that I is ready to change. I really is. I think we should—" "Tyler," Vero said, "talks about this because you and me, we belongs—" "Tyler. Together, and what happened was because I was stressed, and you knows that I loves—" "Tyler, I'm in Dubai." A pause. "What are you doing in Dubai?" "Recalibrating," she said, and ended the call. Sandra stared at her. "Who are you?" Sandra said slowly. "And what? Have you done with my best friend?" "Get out," Vero said, standing and moving toward the wardrobe. "I need to find something to wear to dinner." Sandra got out, but not before punching the air in the hallway where she thought Vero couldn't see her. Vero could see her. She said nothing. She was smiling too hard to speak. Dinner was at a restaurant on the water that felt like being inside a dream someone very wealthy had once had. Taeyang was already there when she arrived, which she noted. She had been on enough dates with men who arrived late as a power move to recognize a man who arrived early as a form of respect. He stood when she approached the table. He stood. She could not explain why this simple, old-fashioned gesture hit her the way it did. Maybe because Tyler Reed had never once stood when she entered a room. Maybe because after years of being treated as a given, being treated as an occasion was disorienting, in a good way, in the way of things you had forgotten existed. The evening was— She would not tell Sandra the details. Sandra would ask, and she would deflect, and Sandra would threaten and wheedle and deploy increasingly creative persuasion tactics, and Vero would still not tell her. Not because it wasn't worth telling, precisely because it was. She would say this much: he was attentive without being suffocating. He was funny in a dry, understated way that crept up on you. When she talked, he looked at her face, not at his phone. When she disagreed with something, he said he looked genuinely interested rather than defensive. And when the evening ended and he walked her back to her hotel and said goodnight at the door, just good night, nothing presumptuous, nothing performed, she went inside and stood in the middle of her hotel room for a full minute just breathing. Then her phone rang. Tyler Reed, again. She did not answer. He texted instead. "I knows you seen my call. Vero, please call I back. I is serious this time. I miss you so much it don't even make sense, and that other guy ain't gonna loves you. Like I does trust I on that one." She read it 3 times. She was not sure if what she felt was sadness or relief or something in between. Maybe grief, for the version of herself that would have read that text and felt hope. For the 24-year-old at the rooftop party who had thought he's probably just nervous and handed over her number and her next 8 years. She put her phone face down on the nightstand. In the morning, Taeyang sent her a message. He had given her his number at dinner, written on a card with the particular deliberateness of a man who does not do things without intention. The message said, "Good morning, I hope you slept well. The restaurant I mentioned on the palm has a lunch reservation available at 1 if you're interested. No obligation. Have a good morning either way." She stared at the message for a long moment, then she texted back. 1. Works. See you there. Sandra read the exchange over her shoulder because Sandra had absolutely no boundaries before 9 a.m. and made a sound like a small explosion. "No obligation," Sandra breathed. He said no obligation. He gave her an exit and she still chose him. "I'm going to cry. I'm already crying. Look at my eyes." "You're not crying. I'm crying on the inside." What happened between Vero and Taeyang in the days that followed was the kind of thing that happens quietly and then suddenly, like how you don't notice a season changing until one morning you step outside and realize something is entirely different, and you couldn't name the exact moment it shifted. He took her to places in Dubai she wouldn't have found alone. Not the obvious tourist places, the hidden ones, the beautiful and strange ones, the ones that felt like secrets. He was attentive in a way that was neither possessive nor performative. He noticed things that she always moved her. water glass to her left, that she read menus from bottom to top, that she laughed at her own jokes half a second before the punchline landed. He noticed, and he said nothing about it, and somehow the noticing without saying felt more intimate than anything else. She was falling. She knew she was falling. It was terrifying in the way of things that are both wonderful and enormous, because she had fallen before, and she knew what falling felt like, and she knew also what the ground felt like when you arrived. "I'm scared," she told Sandra one evening on the balcony, while the city glittered below them. "I know," Sandra said. "What if—" "Don't. Sandra. Don't finish that sentence with Tyler's name. Don't let him be the measuring stick for what love looks like. That man is not the standard. He was never the standard." Sandra turned to look at her. Taeyang shows up. He asks, he notices, he's patient. He doesn't need you to be smaller. She paused. "Give him a chance. Give yourself a chance." Vero looked out at Dubai. "He's a mafia boss," she said. "And you're a woman who stayed with Tyler Reed for 8 years, Sandra said. "Clearly you are not afraid of dangerous things. At least this one uses correct punctuation." Vero was quiet for a moment, then she started laughing. She laughed until her eyes watered, there on that balcony in Dubai, with the city below her and Sandra beside her, and the wreckage of 8 years somewhere behind her, and something terrifying and wonderful somewhere ahead. It felt, she thought, like being alive. She called Taeyang. He answered on the second ring. Vero. Just her name, in his voice with that particular weight he gave it, as if it were not just a name but a destination. "I think," she said carefully, "that I am going to stop being scared." A pause. "Good," he said, and she could hear the smile in it. "I've been waiting." What followed, she would keep mostly to herself. Sandra tried everything short of bribery, and she tried that too, and Vero deflected each attempt with the particular serenity of a woman who is holding something precious and has decided to hold it quietly for a while. What she would say, he was extraordinary, not just in the ways that were obvious, in the ways that mattered. He treated her like she mattered, not just in the grand gestures that anyone could perform, but in the 1,000 small ways that could not be faked. She was present to him. Her comfort, her preferences, her pleasure. These were not afterthoughts. She had not known until then how much she had settled for being an afterthought. She lay awake afterward thinking about this, about the gap between what she had accepted and what was actually available to her, about the years spent next to a man who had made her feel lucky to be there. She felt quietly and without drama, furious. Sandra knocked on the door between their rooms at 8 in the morning. "Gist," she said immediately, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Now." "Good morning to you too." "Gist." "Sandra, Vero." Vero looked at the ceiling. He was... She paused. It was... She paused again. "Use your words," Sandra said. "You have a first-class degree." "Words are insufficient." Sandra fell backward onto the bed and stared at the ceiling alongside her. "Words are insufficient," Sandra repeated reverently. "I'm going to need a moment." "Take your time. Words are insufficient." Sandra. "I'm fine, I'm processing." Her phone buzzed. She picked it up. Tyler Reed. She read the message with Sandra reading over her shoulder, because Sandra had definitively abandoned any pretense of respecting personal space. "Vero, I know you out there doing whatever, but just so you know, we didn't even break up. You just left, and when that other dude is done using you for whatever he using you for, you gonna come back crying, and I'll probably take you back because that's the kind of man I am, but I want you to know it's gonna be on my terms and you're gonna have to earn it back. Okay, so just think about that out there in Dubai or wherever you at." Sandra read it once. Read it again. Put the phone down. "You're gonna have to earn it back," Sandra said. "Yes. Earns EARNS with an S." "I noticed. Vero." Sandra. "The man who used correct semicolons is in this same city as you right now. And you, Oxford First Class, Forbes featured, Valentino on a Tuesday, couldn't find a single word to describe last night. Allegedly." "Allegedly," Vero said, and Tyler Reed, from his apartment, which still doesn't have Wi-Fi, is telling you that you will have to earn his forgiveness. Sandra picked the phone back up and looked at the message again with the expression of a scientist observing a particularly remarkable specimen. I want you to really sit with this contrast. Vero was already sitting with it. She was sitting with it and she could feel, physically feel, the last small ember of what she had carried for Tyler Reed. The loyalty, the hope, the stubborn love that had outlasted all available evidence. Go out. Not dramatically, not with tears, just out. Like a light someone had finally remembered to switch off. He's right about one thing, she said. What? We didn't officially break up. She picked up her phone, not to call Tyler, to text Tae-young good morning. We're going to fix that, she said. Today? Today. She called Tyler. He answered with an immediate warmth that told her he had interpreted her calling as capitulation. Babe. We're done, Tyler, she said, simply, cleanly, the way you close a door that has been open too long. Not because of anyone else, because of us, because of 8 years of what you actually are. She paused. I hope you find what you're looking for. I genuinely mean that. Vero, you is making a goodbye, Tyler. She hung up. Sandra was very still for a moment. Then she got up, went to the minibar, retrieved 2 small bottles of something celebratory, and held one out. It's 8:15 in the morning, Vero said. It is a special occasion, Sandra said. They drank at 8:15 in the morning on a balcony in Dubai and said nothing, because nothing needed to be said, because some moments are complete exactly as they are. Okay, I need the comments to be open right now. Are you rooting for Vero? Because she just closed a 8-year chapter at 8:15 in the morning with champagne and her best friend. And I think that's the most beautiful thing ever. Like this video if you're Team Vero. We are almost at the best part. He found her on day 4. It was a good day. That was the thing Vero would remember later, that it had started as a genuinely good day. The kind she had forgotten existed. The sun was doing exactly what Dubai's sun is supposed to do. The drinks were cold, and Sandra had been making her laugh for 2 hours straight about absolutely nothing important. I'm just saying, Sandra was saying, holding her phone up at an angle that required her to contort her entire body. That the light here is doing something for my skin that no moisturizer has ever achieved, and I need to document it thoroughly. You've taken 48 pictures, Vero said. 48, Sandra corrected, clicking again. This is content, Vero. This is my legacy. Your legacy is a pool selfie. My legacy is a pool selfie in Dubai with perfect lighting and a green juice I paid $30 for. She examined the photo critically. We heal how we heal. Vero laughed, leaned back in her sun lounger, felt the sun on her face and thought, This is what it feels like to just exist without managing anything. She was just reaching for her drink when her phone rang. Tyler Reed, calling. From New York, or so she thought. She declined it. He called again. She declined it again. He texted, I knows you seen my calls, Vero, pick up, it's important, I needs to talk to you. Sandra, reading over her shoulder as was her custom and her right apparently, said, Don't. I'm not, Vero said. She put the phone face down. Sandra went back to her 49th picture. Vero went back to her drink. For exactly 40 minutes, everything was fine. Then she looked up. Tyler Reed was walking across the pool deck of the Atlantis the Royal in Dubai, UAE, wearing a tracksuit that had not been designed for this climate, pulling a carry-on suitcase, sweating magnificently, and scanning the crowd with the focused energy of a man on a mission he had not thought all the way through. Sandra saw him first. Sandra made a sound that was not a word. Vero turned. They stared. She still didn't know how he found her. She suspected Sandra's Instagram, which Sandra posted to with the enthusiasm of someone being paid per story, had something to do with it. The geotags, the very obvious Atlantis the Royal backdrop, the caption that said, Healing Era Loading, which in retrospect was practically a GPS coordinate. Tyler spotted her. His face broke into that smile, the one that had worked on her at 24, the one she had spent 8 years being managed by. And he started walking toward her with the carry-on rattling behind him, across the pool deck tiles like an announcement. Babe, he said, arriving breathless and magnificently damp. I flew here. Sandra closed her eyes. You flew here, Vero repeated. I flew here for you, because you is worth it. He was looking at her with an intensity that might have moved her once. Might have. I knows I messed up. I knows things has been rough between we, Tyler. But I wants you to know that I've been doing a lot of thinking and reflections, and I realize that you is the one that I wants to be with, and I is ready to be the man that you needs me to be. There was a silence, a long one. From 3 sun loungers away, a man in a dark shirt lowered his drink very slowly and watched. Vero had not yet noticed Taeyang was there. She would notice in a moment. Right now she was looking at Tyler, at the carry-on, at the tracksuit, at the sweat, at the smile, and feeling something she couldn't immediately name. Not love, not anger exactly. Something more like clarity. How did you find me? She said. Sandra posted your location on Sandra. I turned it off, Sandra said immediately. I turned the geotag off after I posted. He must have, I don't know how he... I called the hotel, Tyler said helpfully. I told them I was your husband and there was the emergency. Another silence. You told them you were my husband, Vero said. I had to. They wasn't going to tell me otherwise. Tyler. She set down her drink. We are not married. We are not together. I came to Dubai specifically to be somewhere you were not. That's not, he started. That's exactly what it is. Vero. His voice shifted, softened, the particular modulation she recognized from years of being on the receiving end of it. You and me, we didn't even broke up. You just left. That don't count as a breakup. I left because I was in a hospital. I knows, but that you left me in, she finished. The pool deck was very quiet. Several people had found reasons to be interested in this conversation. Tyler's jaw tightened. He was recalibrating. She could see it, the shift from soft to something harder, the move to a different tactic when the first one didn't land. Is there someone else? He said. Tyler, because Sandra's page had... Whether there is someone else or not, Vero said carefully, is not the point. The point is that I am asking you clearly and directly to go home. I just flewed 14 hours. I didn't ask you to fly here. Flewed, Sandra said under her breath, and then pressed her lips together very hard. I flewed 14 hours, Tyler repeated, with the energy of a man who felt this was an irrefutable argument. Because I loves you and I is not giving up on we... Excuse me. The voice came from the left, calm, unhurried, with the particular quality of something that does not need to raise itself to be heard. Taeyang had stood up. He walked over with the easy, measured pace of a man who owned every room he walked into and was simply deciding whether to let you know it. He stopped at a distance that was polite and also somehow made the space entirely his. He looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at him. Taeyang said nothing for a moment. He simply assessed. The way you assess something that has appeared in your path and you are deciding how much of your attention it deserves. Then he said, pleasantly, you flew 14 hours. Yeah, Tyler said, with the instinctive wariness of a man who can feel something happening but can't quite locate it. To follow a woman who didn't invite you. That's between me and her. To a country you had to lie to find her in. Taeyang tilted his head slightly. And you arrived with a carry-on, which means you planned this, which means it was not impulse. He paused. Which makes it worse, not better. Tyler stared at him. Who is you? Tyler asked. Taeyang looked at him for a moment with an expression that was not unkind and was also devastating. Someone who uses correct pronouns, he said. Sandra made a noise into her drink that she converted, heroically, into a cough. You think you's funny, Tyler said, his voice edging harder now. I think, Taeyang said, still pleasant, still unhurried, that the lady has asked you to go home. I think you should do that. Tyler turned to Vero. This is who you left me for, he said. This guy? Tyler. After everything, after years. I didn't leave you for anyone, Vero said, and her voice was so steady it surprised even her. I left you for me. That's the part you keep missing. Something moved across Tyler's face, something that in another version of this story, in another version of her, she would have rushed to fix. She didn't rush to fix it. "Go home, Tyler," she said, quietly, firmly, like closing a door. "Please." He looked at her for a long moment, then he picked up his carry-on. He walked back across the pool deck the way he had come, the handle rattling on the tiles, and he did not look back, and Vero watched him go and felt nothing complicated, just quiet, the same quiet from the hospital, but different now, chosen. Sandra waited until he was fully out of sight, then she turned to Tae-yang. "The grammar," she said with reverence. "Sir." Tae-yang's expression moved fractionally, towards something that was almost amusement. "She was handling it," he said simply. "I just assisted." "You assisted beautifully," Sandra said. Vero looked at him. He looked back at her, not with the triumphant energy of a man who had won something, just steady, present. "Are you all right?" he said. "Yes," she said, and meant it. Tae-yang nodded once and returned to his sun lounger. No performance, no lingering, just back to his afternoon like he had simply done what needed to be done, and that was that. Sandra watched him go. Then she turned to Vero with the expression of a woman who had just witnessed something that would fuel her for the next 10 years. "That's what a normal person does?" she said quietly. Vero said nothing. She was still looking at the empty space Tyler had left, not with sadness, with something closer to wonder, at herself, at the years, at the very specific kind of blindness that love can produce. That evening, Sandra was on her bed scrolling through her phone when Vero came out of the bathroom, sat on the edge of her own bed, and stared at the wall with the expression of a woman doing very serious internal mathematics. Sandra looked up. "What?" "I have a question," Vero said. "Ask. And I need you to answer it seriously." "I am a serious person." Vero turned to look at her. "Sandra, did Tyler use jazz on me?" Sandra put her phone down very slowly. "I beg your pardon." "Jazz," Vero repeated. "Juju, something, anything. Because I have been sitting here for the last 30 minutes trying to explain to myself how me, Oxford, first class, Forbes, Valentino on a Tuesday, spent 8 years with a man who just showed up in Dubai in a tracksuit with a carry-on like he was checking into a hostel." She gestured helplessly. "There is no logical explanation, Sandra. I have run the numbers. The only thing that makes sense is jazz." Sandra stared at her for a very long moment. Then she said, "Vero, I'm serious. I know you're serious, and that's what's concerning me. How else do you explain it?" Vero threw her hands up. He said, and I quote, "You is the most beautifulest woman I ever seen in my entire life of living." And I gave that man my number, my actual phone number, that I then answered, repeatedly for 8 years. To be fair, there is no fair, Sandra, there is no fair. That man texted me, "I thinked about what you said and I stayed. I co-signed his credit cards. I apologized to him for being successful. She stopped. "Jazz, Sandra, it was jazz." Sandra was trying very hard not to laugh. She was failing completely. "It was not jazz," Sandra managed. "Then what was it?" "Vero." Sandra sat up. "Do you remember February 14th 2 years ago?" "Don't." "Valentine's Day. You called me at 11 p.m. You were crying." Sandra. "Not sad crying, happy crying." Sandra's face was already forming, and it was deeply unflattering. "Sandra, he surprised me with roses, and he wrote me a card, and it said, 'You're the most importantest person in my whole entire world, and I loves you more than anything I ever loved before.'" She paused for effect. "Your, Y-O-U-R, not your. I know what I said, and you said, and I will never forget this as long as I live. Sandra, I know the grammar isn't perfect, but the feeling is there, and that's what matters." The room was very quiet. "The feeling," Sandra repeated softly, wiping a tear of laughter from the corner of her eye. "The feeling was there, Vero." "I want to die," Vero said. "You defended that man's grammar with your whole chest. Tyler and I have something you wouldn't understand, Sandra. He loves me in his own way, Sandra. You've never seen how he is when it's just us, Sandra." She was laughing fully now, the kind that required her to lie down. And that same man just flew 14 hours in a polyester tracksuit sweating like, "Please stop saying flued. Flued Vero, to find you in a 5-star hotel in Dubai to tell you that you was worth it." Sandra was barely breathing. "Jazz, she's asking me about Jazz." "Something had to have happened to me," Vero said, but she was laughing now too, the helpless kind, the kind that comes out when something is both deeply funny and deeply true. "Normal people don't do what I did. Normal people hear you as the most beautifulest and they leave Sandra." "You are not normal people," Sandra said, still on her back staring at the ceiling. "You are special, uniquely, extraordinarily special." "I hate you." "No, you don't." "I genuinely might." Sandra sat up, looked at her best friend properly. "It wasn't Jazz, baby. It was just love. Stupid, inconvenient, poorly conjugated love." She shrugged. "It happens to the best of us. The important thing is, you got out." Vero was quiet, for a moment. "He really said you was worth it when he arrived," she said. "He really did." "In a tracksuit." "Polyester," Sandra confirmed, "in this heat. With a carry-on." "Rolling it across the pool deck," Sandra added, "like luggage." They looked at each other. "Jazz," Vero said firmly. Sandra fell back on the bed laughing and did not stop for a very long time. She did not go home when Sandra's vacation ended. That is to say, she went back to the United States, but she did not go back to the life she had left. She went back to her consulting firm, which her team had run beautifully in her absence, because she had, it turned out, built something that did not require her to hold it together by sacrificing herself. She went back to her apartment in her name that she had been sharing with a man who had contributed primarily to chaos. And she had a conversation with Tyler's belongings and several large boxes that resulted in Tyler collecting his things on a Wednesday while she was at work. She did not see him. She left the key with the doorman. She spoke to Tae-yang every day, not always for long. He was busy, she was busy, their schedules spanned time zones, but every day. He called when he said he would call. He remembered things she mentioned in passing. He asked about her team by name. 6 weeks after Dubai, he came to New York. He did not make it a surprise. He called and said, "I'm going to be in New York next week. I'd like to see you if that works." It worked. Sandra, informed of this development, had to sit down. What followed was not easy exactly, not uncomplicated. He moved through her world, and she moved toward his, and both of these things required adjustment, required honesty, required the particular courage of people who have decided to choose something and keep choosing it. She learned his world gradually and without drama. She was not a woman who frightened easily, and she was not a woman who needed things to be simple. She needed them to be true. His world was what it was. He never asked her to pretend otherwise, and she never asked him to be other than he was, and this mutual acceptance without illusion, turned out to be the foundation of something that was very solid. She was good at his world, which surprised no one who knew her. She had spent years managing a man who was essentially chaos in a good-looking package. Managing complexity with intelligence and composure turned out to be a transferable skill. He watched her navigate a situation once that would have rattled most people, and afterward said, "You're remarkable, you know that?" "I'm learning to know that," she said. He looked at her for a moment. "Tyler Reed was a fool," he said simply. "That's not an insult, just a fact." She laughed, and then she told him she wasn't entirely sure why, except that he made her feel like the truth was safe, about the baby, about the hospital, about waking up alone. He was very still while she talked. When she finished, he said, "I'm sorry." Not a performance of sorry, just sorry, real and quiet and sufficient. "You were alone," he said. "Sandra came." "Sandra came because she loves you, but before Sandra." He looked at her. "You were alone." "Yes." He took her hand. He held it. He did not say anything else because there was nothing else to say, and he was a man who understood the difference between filling a silence and honoring it. She fell the rest of the way in love with him right there. Sandra started teasing her approximately 2 weeks after Vero and Tae-yang made things official, and did not stop. "I just want to note," Sandra said at brunch one Sunday in the particular tone she used when she was about to be maximally insufferable. That I told you. I said Dubai. I said Mafia boss. I said, give love a chance. You said I might meet a Mafia boss, Vero said. You didn't say anything about giving love a chance. You said he might have good grammar. Both things can be true. Sandra sipped her mimosa. I just want credit, historical credit, for being right. You want a trophy? I want a speech at the wedding. I want it acknowledged in the speech that Sandra Mensah? That's not your last name. Sandra, the best friend, was correct about Dubai and Mafia bosses and grammar and love and all of it, and that without Sandra, this woman would still be receiving texts about Wi-Fi passwords. Vero was laughing. She was always laughing these days, she noticed. Not the managed, careful laughter of someone trying to keep the mood light in a difficult situation. Real laughter, the unguarded kind. You'll get your speech, she said. At the wedding? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Sandra gave her a look that said she was very much going to get ahead of herself, and there was nothing Vero could do about it. She wasn't wrong as it happened. Vero became, in the years that followed, an unexpected advocate. It started quietly, a post on her personal social media, not even planned, about the night she woke up in a hospital, about what she had lost, about the things she had told herself that had kept her in a room she should have left years earlier, about the specific cruelty of loving someone who uses your love against you. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages, women who recognized themselves, women who were still in it, women who had gotten out and were still healing, men too. She hadn't expected that. She started talking more. On panels, on podcasts, in op-eds for publications that had previously only wanted to discuss her consulting firm. She talked about coercive control and financial abuse and the particular isolation of being in a relationship that slowly dismantles your network so that when it falls apart you find yourself alone. She talked about Sandra, about what it cost to be the friend who doesn't give up, about what she owed the Sandras of the world and how rarely they were acknowledged. Sandra, predictably, was insufferable about this. You're basically saying I saved your life, Sandra said. I'm saying your persistence was instrumental in... I saved your life, Sandra. You can say it. I saved your life and now you're thriving and in love with a Korean mafia boss, and it's all because of me. I refuse to let you have this. You don't have a choice. It's historically documented now. You said it on a podcast. She had, in fact, said something close to it on a podcast. Sandra had listened to that episode 4 times and sent the link to everyone she had ever met. Tae-yang listened to her talk about it once, a live panel she did in New York about recognizing abuse in high-functioning relationships. He sat in the audience and watched her command the room the way she commanded every room. And afterward, he stood at the side while people crowded around her, and when she finally made her way to him, he looked at her with those quiet, decided eyes and said, 24-year-old, you would not believe this version. No, she agreed. She'd be proud. She had to look away for a moment. Don't, she said. I just did a whole panel. I'm not crying in this venue. Okay, he said and took her hand. They were married the following spring. Sandra's speech was, as promised, a comprehensive historical account of her own contributions to the relationship, delivered with the confidence of a woman who had waited years for this podium and intended to use every second of it. It was also, Vero would admit this privately to Tae-yang at the end of the night, the funniest and most loving thing anyone had ever said about her. Tae-yang laughed through the whole thing. I like her, he said, for approximately the 100th time. Everyone likes her, Vero said. That's the problem. They honeymooned in, of course, Dubai, the same hotel, the same restaurant where he had looked at her across a room and decided. She stood on the same balcony where she had laughed until she cried and felt underneath everything else the particular piece of a woman who has found her way back to herself. What are you thinking? He said, coming to stand beside her. She considered the question. That I wore Valentino on a Tuesday for no reason for years, she said, and the whole time I thought it was just a quirk. But I think I was practicing. I think I was reminding myself that I was worth dressing for even when no one was looking. He was quiet for a moment. You were always worth it, he said. She turned to look at him. I know that now, she said. He kissed her there on the balcony with Dubai glittering below them, and she held on to him and thought about 24 and 31 and all the years between and everything she had lost and found and become, and none of it felt wasted. Not even the hard parts. Not even Tyler Reed and his spectacular destruction of the English language. Not even the night she woke up alone in a hospital. All of it had been, in its way, the long road here. Here, where someone knew the difference between her water glass positions, where someone showed up early as an act of respect, where someone said, I'll always ask and meant it, and kept meaning it, every single day. She was pregnant by autumn. She found out on a Thursday morning and sat with it for an hour before she told anyone, just her and the information, quiet in the kitchen of the home they had made together. She held the feeling carefully, the way you hold something that is both precious and enormous. Then she called Sandra. Sandra screamed for approximately 45 seconds without stopping. Then she said, I'm going to be the godmother. This is not a request. I know, Vero said. I want it in writing. Sandra. I saved your life. I get to be the godmother. This is the natural order of things. She told Tae-yang that evening. She had thought about how, a dinner, a card, something planned. But in the end, she just told him, simply, the way she had learned to tell him things, standing in the kitchen, looking at him. He went very still. Then he crossed the room and held her and didn't say anything for a long time, and she could feel in the way he held her everything that didn't need to be said. A boy, he said eventually against her hair. We don't know that yet. A boy, he said again with the particular confidence of a man who has decided about things. It was a boy. She thought about Tyler Reed exactly once after that, not with anger, not with grief, but with the distant, almost affectionate bewilderment you feel about a very old mistake. She was sitting in the nursery they had built together, in the quiet before the baby came, and she thought about 24 and a rooftop party, and a man who had said you is literally the most gorgeous woman, and she had thought, he's probably just nervous. She laughed, there in the quiet nursery, all by herself. She hoped he had found someone who could translate him. She genuinely did. She hoped also that he had found a grammar class. But mostly she thought about this room, this house, this life. The man in the next room who stood when she entered spaces. The best friend who had stayed when leaving would have been easier. The version of herself she had almost lost and had found again on a balcony in Dubai with a city glittering below her, and laughter that felt finally completely free. Some loves teach you, she thought, and some loves arrive to show you what you were being taught for. She picked up her phone and texted Sandra. Thank you, she wrote. For all of it. Sandra's response was immediate. I know. Also, I wanted on record that I knew about Dubai before Dubai happened, and no one ever gives me enough credit for this. Vero put her phone down, still smiling. Outside, somewhere in the house, she could hear Tae-yang's voice, low even, talking to someone on a call, the particular cadence of a man conducting the business of his world. In a few months, she thought, there would be another voice in this house, small and new and entirely unknown. She couldn't wait to meet him. And that is Vero's story, from Tyler Reed's grammar to Kim Tae-yang's semicolons, from a hospital room to a nursery, from witchcraft to wisdom. If this story touched you, if you've been a Vero, if you have a Sandra, if you're somewhere in the middle of your own long road, drop a comment below, share this with someone who needs it, and if you're new here, subscribe. It's free, and this is exactly the kind of story we tell on this channel, the kind where the woman always, eventually, finds her way home to herself. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It means everything. See you in the next one.